Pastor Brenda, and it's really good to meet you in this space. We're continuing our talk about humility. Last week we talked about how humility requires confidence. We're going to build on that and also kind of show how your identity, your enoughness, is part of this virtue of humility. All right, so it is just going to become obvious, and it's going to leave you in some tension because that's what we discovered. We just finished up talking about this live as a church. We meet together on Friday nights, and I will say that our conversation was larger and longer than the actual word because the conversation brought up so much to help us clarify. And then my benediction was to stay in the tension that we just uncovered. So that's where we're heading. My goal is to leave you in the tension of what humility is so that you can see your enoughness and go forth and bless the world. All right? So humility requires confidence. Humble people have a reasonably accurate view of themselves. It's neither too high nor too low. We've talked about that. That is based on science. And confidence is driven by the certainty of God-given identity and the conviction that nothing can take that identity away. From this conviction, I can live my life in humility. Humility affirms our longing for worth and dignity. Now think about that sentence right there. There's some hope for you who struggle with your worthiness, your acceptance, your perfectionism, you're comparing yourself. Humility affirms our longing for worth and dignity. We get our enoughness. It teaches us how much God delights in us, how much we matter to God, how significant we are to God, even how honorable we are to God. It rightly orders our search for worth and dignity. Now, hubris does the exact opposite. Hubris is a synonym for the word pride, and I'm going to take pride tonight into pride's used in the Bible a lot. I know we have this negative connotation with pride, but here comes the tension. I promised you, pride is on this like the spectrum, and there is good pride and there's negative pride. I'm going to call the negative pride hubris, haughtiness, or as I called it tonight, jack jerkiness. And then there's the pride of, I am made in the image of God. I am confident in who God has made me to be. And there's a swelling there, pride of that I want you to feel and recognize your enoughness that you can go out and change the world. All right? As we also have described previously, people who aren't humble suck the life out of conversations. This is because those people, and I think you just pictured somebody, right? Those people are taking from your identity to make themselves accepted, to make themselves feel bigger, to make themselves feel important, to make themselves feel loved. They're taking from you to form their identity. And this is not confidence. This is not humility at all. They are just taking from you. Hubris disrupts most everything. Proverbs 18:12 says, haughtiness goes before destruction, and humility precedes honor. Honor, there's some pride in receiving honor, right? I want you to see that. We're going to build on this. 1 Peter 5:5 says, and all of you dress yourselves in humility as you relate to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So let me just use the hubris word there, or the jack jerkiness there. For God opposes the jack jerkiness, but gives grace to the humble. Let me take this just a bit further in 1 Peter 5:5 from the Message. God has had it with the proud, but takes delight in just plain people. not overestimating your abilities and behaviors, and not coming in too low so that you're a needy, seeking person. You are just plain people with a supernatural, everlasting God, and this is your identity. Your identity is in the everlasting, larger story God, and it is rooted in something that has no end. You don't need to tell everyone that you're smart. Your humility will reveal to everyone that you are smart. You're beginning to see what humility is. You're beginning to feel the tension. Rick Warren, quote from him, he said, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less." All right? So when you are being who God made you to be, humility is the fruit. You are matching image to the good thing you are doing which is just like breathing. God has birthed you, breathed into you, given you a destiny, has given you tools that I don't have, that you have. And when you are living out your God-given way of life, you do things. And you receive compliments for those things. And you live in humility because you are just doing these things that God made you to do. And those compliments give you the confidence to say, "Ah, yes, I must be doing those God-given things." And you go forth and you bless the world. As Christians, we are growing to be Christ-like in our world so Christ can be seen. This does make humility even easier because when you are living in your God-given strengths, Christ is seen. God gave us our abilities, and it is more correct to be proud how God made you than to be proud of your abilities. It's not like I'm the greatest preacher in all the world. Maybe I am. I'm pretty good at it. But this is because I know who God made me to be, and I'm the one showing up here to give you the teaching. Are you beginning to see some of the tension here? And here comes the science. I'm going to give you a quote. Science has revealed that true, authentic humility is a secure openness to the world where we can be honest with ourselves and others about our strength and limitations. There it is, not too much and not too low. Seeking to learn new perspectives and caring deeply about those around us. It is approaching the world around us with a sense of enoughness. If I know my enoughness, I'm living in my humility so I can enter into your world and I can bless your world with how God has made me to be. I'm not taking from you to form my identity. I'm not comparing myself to you so I feel so much less than. I should be a better Christian. I should be a better person. No, in my enoughness, because of my identity, is in my God-given abilities and how God made me to be, I can enter into your world in that humility, in that enoughness, and bless your world. So be inspired. Humility is very appealing when you see it in another person. It will draw you to someone. We talked in the previous video about compliments. There was a really good conversation about why it feels weird to receive compliments and how should we receive compliments. I hope you had that conversation with your people when you watched the video from last week. Just want to add something else to that whole thought, and there's a lot of good thoughts I hope your conversation had. But I'm encouraging my church and you to be generous with your compliments. Tell people what you see about them that is beautiful and good and true, because you're helping them see how God has made them to be. You're helping them be in that enoughness. By you saying these things is telling them that this is how God made them to be. It is such a blessing. This is not hubris. You're not going to turn me into some kind of hubris monster by leaving me a comment that this teaching series is blessing you. It's just telling me, whew, I'm doing it. I'm coming here on the camera, reteaching what we taught here on Friday nights, and it's still good for you to learn something from. That just builds my confidence so I can do this again the next week. Do you see? So, here's come several questions. So I hope you gathered with your people, your roommates, your family, to have these conversations. We have several really good questions tonight. When should we have pride for the good things that we do? Talk about that. Next question. And maybe you stumbled into this question, but what is bragging? And is bragging good or bragging bad? Or what makes bragging so negative? Talk about that. And then the last question, it's a really good question. A little bit different. Can flowers be humble? Yeah, that's what I said. I want you to talk about, can flowers be humble? Have that conversation. I hope that conversation spun in some directions here. I hope you ended up with the question of yes. Because flowers are just out there being who God made them to be. Like you. This is their confidence just glowing. And don't flowers attract people? Humility is good for the world. They're just doing what they do by glorifying God. And this is humility. There it is, right there. We can do this too. Flowers do reflect the character of their creator. And you can do this too. This is humility. Which means that you can have beauty and humility at the same time. Isn't that great? And doesn't that make the world better? So just a repeat of some of the science. We need more humility in this world, right? We know there's a lack of it. We see it. Ugh. And this is what we need. And scientifically proven, there's more humility in the world. We get more physical, mental, and relational health. There's more gratefulness. There's more forgiveness. There's more generosity. There's more helpfulness. There's better romantic relationships. There's less anxiety about death. There's less spiritual struggle. You perform better at school and work. You show more compassion. And there's better self-esteem. And all of these positive psychology findings matches pretty perfectly with what Paul wrote to the Colossians. In Colossians 3:12 through 15, said, since God chose you to be the holy people, he loves you. You must clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony. Let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts, for as members of one body you are called to live in peace. And always be thankful. Doesn't that match the science? So here's the benediction. You are to live in this tension. And one of the conversations we had during church live on Friday nights was someone said, I wanted to say we're supposed to live in the balance of this, this spectrum. But she said, more, it's more like tension. Because the more I live in the tension of this, the more I'm awake to it. So maybe this is why we don't like humility. Because it does cause this tension where we are recognizing we're not so great, but we're not bad either. We're in this sweet spot where God gets to have all his ability to put into us shine through us like a flower. And the world becomes better. And you get to receive some compliments. You get to be seen. And then you get to enter any room you're in with that enoughness. Because this room can't make or break you. Because you are in your enoughness. You know who God has made you to be. And you enter into that room with your enoughness. And you can bless the world. And you might receive a compliment in there, and you will know you're doing what God has created you to be. You're beautiful and humble at the same time. So may you live in this tension and find the beauty in this humility and bless your world, which we're going to talk more about next week, about how we can affect our world even more. Amen.